How are we navigating all of this? And stop me if you've heard this question before in every quarterly board meeting since the beginning of time. If you had to grow revenue 2x with the same team today, where would AI be your force multiplier?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the things we've done and how those played out, and then I'll sort of talk about like where we're going next. So, um, last year for us, content seemed like again, marketing content. So this is not guides on how to run a surgery. We felt pretty safe bet to say, guess what, content team, good news, no one's getting fired, bad news, no one's getting hired, and we got to double the output, meet your friend, Gen AI, go. And so we were very successful, I think, just scaling our content, high quality content production using Gen AI. So to me, that's like no brainer. Um, the other one that we went really big into is I talked about the MDR use case. Like, we don't need MDRs anymore. We can reskill them and use them somewhere else. And then we went hard at BDRs and some lessons learned there, which I'll talk later. But what it has enabled us to do is, you know, I don't think that a BDR's highest value activity is emailing, especially if I can write a pretty darn good email using an agent. So we've been able to take all of the critical signals that we want worked in real time, job change, funding announcement, on our website, predicted in market, and been able to attach an agent to go and work those with email. And then our team can go and get on the phones and do social and give that first demo. Some of the more important things. So that's been a real game changer for us. And then the third use case was, I'm sure others of you are like this, where you have a lot of product knowledge in a lot of different places. And so what we were able to do is like kind of aggregate all of our product knowledge in one place, put a large language model on top of it, put it actually in our product, to make it just easier for customers if they're in the app, like, how do you do this? And make it more conversational. And so that's been kind of just a successful, like, high value thing for customers. So those were our big bets last year. Um, this year, from a marketing perspective, it's about design, right? Particularly more like programmatic design, like update these ads, refresh these things. Like we should be able to, use Gen AI more effectively there. Onboarding and support. So some of our products are pretty complex. I think it would be hard for an AI CSM to do the work, but we do have some that are pretty rinse and repeat, right? Our sales intelligence application is pretty easy to use and configure. Like, how can we have an agent help onboard our customers, things like that. So that's the second area that we're going into. And last, and I'll talk more about this later, is just how do we save our AE's time, particularly in preparing things like putting together a QBR deck, putting together an executive prep doc. Like, these are things that they shouldn't have to be spending a lot of time on. So those are our kind of focus areas for this year.
Okay. And as just a follow-up to that, then, are you seeing your customers who are using these tools, are they using them to scale smarter, or are they stuck using it like a shinier CRM?
It, it- you know, we've had these solutions a while, and what's interesting is we started bundling, especially the real like Gen AI forward, the email agents. We started bundling that in what we sell, and those customers are all over it because that's what they bought. That's what they know. That was part of their sales cycle. It's much harder to have to go to a customer and have them like rethink what they're using you for. And so that's been harder to get kind of the existing customers, just because I think they're like, oh, I think of you like in this box, this is the like proverbial problem of being a platform. But with our workflow engine that we just launched, we're seeing that start to change.
Mhm.
And part of that, I think, is because one, it's included in everyone's subscription, so there's no extra cost. And then two, we basically made our CSM's whole, MBO and everything to be like driving adoption. Um, and then the third thing we did is we included pre-built plays. People don't want to have to come up with it on their own. And so we've just included, 20% of my pipeline right now is what I call autonomous, meaning no one touches it. And so we took those plays that we just know work and we included them as templates. And so that's helping kind of the existing base start to adopt.
Fantastic. So in that autonomous pipeline, then beginning to merge some of the learnings that we had out of, let's call it like the product-led growth side of things, so sales-led growth and marketing-led growth into one autonomous pipeline. That's extraordinary. And you mentioned that it was 20% of your pipeline?
Hmm. Yep.
Amazing.
It comes
Amazing.
from like, just a handful of plays.
Extraordinary. And the fact then that you are enabling that for your existing customers with no additional charge, pre-built plays in. I mean, I'm not a seller, and by any stretch of the imagination, but that's extra. I love seeing value delivered from technology companies, especially right now in this type of market condition. Let's talk about selling better though, right? Because it's not just about more pipeline, it's about better fit pipeline, higher conversion, and more strategic customer engagement. Um, tell me about what's changed in the psychology of buyers now in the age of AI.
Yeah, so what's interesting is we started as an AI company, but it was like predictive analytics, which now is like old AI, but so we've always been an AI company, and companies like using our predictions see that when we predict an account, they see 30% faster cycle times, 20% better conversions, and actually 30% higher ASPs. So, good news is like that was kind of a great AI foundation for our customers. Bad news is like just because you give a customer a signal doesn't mean they do anything, right? And so what we found was like, why aren't you working? Please, like, go follow up. These ones are ready to buy. Da 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 da. And people are reliably unreliable. And so now what we've done is we've really like put on top of the predictions the right execution engine with our email agents so that when we say an account is ready to buy, we don't have to wait for maybe a salesperson to decide they're going to, email them or do this or do that. We just are automatically triggering, the advertising agent as an example and the email agent to take it from prediction or signal all the way to meeting booked. And so that's been really, fantastic. And that's how customers are seeing this autonomous pipeline from, kind of goes back to those plays. Um, but I think what's even better is like the time savings, right? Because kind of to your first point, like boards are saying, well, you don't need as many people. You should be able to use an agent and this and that and the other. But like a lot of these solutions are hard to use, and it's really time consuming to like do all the prompts and then save the prompts and then add it in this and hack it in here and make sure it gets here, there, and everywhere. So that workflow and that automation of being able to take the signal and then queue off the agent for the result, I think is what's getting people really excited because they're like, wow, we're saving like literally hundreds of hours. Um, and that's what gets the humans excited. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. Right. Because we have that 20% of pipeline that wasn't there before that's fully automated and ready to go, autonomously created, and managed and then closed. And then you have your other 80% where you're actually improving the selling, right? We're not just automating the things that are happening here. We're still having people do people things.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Extraordinary.